The day Mrs. Winters told me I couldn't represent Oakwood Middle School in the state mathematics competition, I felt something inside me break. Not loudly like glass shattering, but quietly, like a pencil snapping under the weight of an eraser. Silent, but irreparable. I was standing before her desk after class, my acceptance letter clutched so tightly in my hands that my fingernails left tiny crescent moons on the paper. "I just don't think you have the right profile for this competition, Zora," she said, not quite meeting my eyes, her fingers straightening papers that were already aligned. "We should select someone who can better represent Oakwood's academic standards." I was 12 years old in 7th grade, and until that moment, I had believed that numbers were the most honest things in the world. 2 + 2 always equaled 4. The circumference of a circle would always be pi times its diameter. These were truths that couldn't be denied, regardless of who calculated them. But standing in that classroom with afternoon sunlight catching dust particles in the air, I learned that some equations included variables I couldn't control. I want to tell you what happened next, how a teacher's prejudice collided with my determination, and how sometimes justice arrives in unexpected forms. This story has stayed with me for 23 years, and though the sting has faded, the lessons remain as clear as theorems written in permanent ink. My name is Zora Jenkins. I was born to parents who believed education was the one inheritance no one could ever take from you. My father worked as a postal carrier, walking the same route for 31 years, and my mother was a nurse at County General. They named me after Zora Neale Hurston because my mother read, "Their eyes were watching God," while pregnant with me, and decided the world needed more women who forged their own paths. Our home in the east side of town wasn't large, but it housed more books than furniture. My parents might have been careful with money elsewhere, but there was always enough for books, second-hand encyclopedias, and mechanical pencils that wouldn't break during long problem-solving sessions at our kitchen table. "The mind needs feeding just like the body," Dad would say, sliding another library book across the table to me. Mathematics became my sanctuary early on. I found peace in its order, its logic, the way it made sense when other things, like why certain kids wouldn't invite me to birthday parties or why store clerks sometimes followed me through aisles, didn't. In numbers, I discovered a language that didn't care about the coil of my hair or the color of my skin. It was pure, unyielding, and beautiful in its certainty. By 6th grade, I was taking advanced math classes. By 7th, I was solving equations that made even my teacher pause. Mrs. Winters, a woman in her 50s with hair the color of steel wool and eyes that rarely showed emotion, wasn't the kind of teacher who gave compliments easily. She would mark my perfect papers with a simple check and move on. No gold stars, no "excellent work, Zora," like she wrote on Jamie Cooper's or Sarah Pendleton's assignments. But I didn't need her praise. The numbers themselves were enough for me, until they weren't. The state mathematics competition was the most prestigious event for middle schoolers in our region. Schools sent their best and brightest to compete in various mathematical categories, and the winners received scholarships, recognition, and opportunities that could shape their futures. When the announcement came that Oakwood would be participating that year, my heart beat so wildly, I had to press my palm against my chest to calm it. I prepared my application meticulously, including my perfect grades, the extra credit work I'd completed, and a letter explaining why I wanted to represent our school. My parents proofread it twice, and Mom even bought me a new folder to submit it in, dark blue with silver stars. "They'd be fools not to choose you," she said, kissing the top of my head. I believed her because parents are supposed to know these things. 2 weeks later, I received an acceptance letter from the competition committee. It stated that based on my credentials, I was qualified to register as Oakwood's representative in the algebra and geometry divisions. I read the letter 7 times before showing my parents. That night, we had my favorite dinner, fried chicken, mac and cheese, and collard greens. To celebrate, Dad even bought a small cake from the bakery with "Congratulations, mathematician," written in swooping blue letters. "Your grandma would be so proud," Mom said, her eyes shiny with tears. She cleaned university classrooms her whole life so her grandchildren could study in them one day. The following Monday, I brought my acceptance letter to school and waited until after math class to show Mrs. Winters. I needed her signature as my teacher to finalize my registration. "Mrs. Winters?" I approached her desk while the other students filed out. "I have something to show you." She looked up, her reading glasses perched on the end of her nose. "What is it, Zora?" "I have a faculty meeting in 15 minutes. I placed the letter on her desk and took a small step back, my hands clasped behind me to hide their trembling. This was it. My moment to make everyone proud. "I've been accepted to represent Oakwood at the state math competition next month," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I just need your signature here to confirm my registration." Mrs. Winters picked up the letter, and I watched her eyes move across the page. Something flickered across her face. Surprise? Discomfort? I couldn't quite name it. She set the letter down and removed her glasses. "Zora," she said, folding her hands atop the letter, "I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding." My smile faltered. "A misunderstanding? But the letter says I'm qualified." "Yes, well," she cleared her throat. "The committee only sees your application. They don't understand the full picture of what's needed to represent Oakwood." The classroom suddenly felt too warm, too small. "I don't understand. My grades are perfect, and I've done all the extra credit." "It's not about grades, Zora," she interrupted. "Representing. Our school is about more than just academic achievement. It's about presenting a certain image, embodying certain qualities that reflect Oakwood's values." She wasn't looking at me anymore, but at some point beyond my shoulder. Her words were carefully selected, each one placed like a brick in a wall, being built between us. "What qualities am I missing?" I asked, my voice now small. Mrs. Winters sighed, as if I was being deliberately obtuse. "I just think someone like Jamie Cooper would be a better fit. He comes from a family with a long history at Oakwood. He's well-spoken, and he presents himself appropriately." Jamie Cooper had received an 87% on our last math test. I had scored 100%. Jamie Cooper's father was a banker who donated to the school annually. Jamie Cooper had straight blonde hair and blue eyes. Jamie Cooper was not like me. "But the competition is about math," I said, desperation creeping into my voice. "And I'm the best math student in our grade." "That's quite an opinion," Mrs. Winters replied, her tone sharpening. "Mathematics is about more than just getting the right answers, Zora. It's about understanding the bigger picture, about presenting solutions in a way others can follow. Jamie has a natural leadership quality that that some students take longer to develop." I stood there, unable to move, unable to speak. The acceptance letter sat beneath her folded hands like a prisoner. "I'm sorry if this disappoints you," she continued, not sounding sorry at all. "But I believe this is for the best. You can still continue your studies and perhaps try again next year with more Development. She held the letter out to me, and I took it with numb fingers. May I go now? I whispered. Mrs. Winters nodded, already turning her attention to her computer screen, as if the matter was closed, as if my dream hadn't just been crushed beneath the heel of her sensible shoe. I walked out of that classroom with my back straight and my head high, the way my mother had taught me to walk through difficult situations. Never let them see you break, she would say. But once I reached the bathroom at the end of the hall, I locked myself in a stall and pressed my forehead against the cool metal door, letting the tears come. The letter crumpled in my hand as I cried silently, careful not to make sounds that might echo off the tiled walls. The bell rang, signaling the next period, but I couldn't move. For the first time in my life, mathematics had failed me, or rather, I had been failed by those who claimed to uphold its pure, objective truth. I don't know how long I stayed there, but eventually I washed my face with cold water, stared at my red-rimmed eyes in the mirror, and told myself that this wasn't the end. I would find another way to prove myself. I had to. But walking home that afternoon, with the spring sun warm on my shoulders, and the acceptance letter stuffed in the deepest pocket of my backpack, I felt the weight of a truth I had always known but had tried to ignore. Some doors would always be harder for me to open. How did Mrs. Winters react to your news? Mom asked when I came through the door, her smile expectant, proud. I tried to answer, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I pulled out the crumpled letter and handed it to her. She said I don't have the right profile. I finally managed. She wants Jamie Cooper to go instead. My mother read anger like music. I could see it in the rhythm of her breathing, the tempo of her blinking eyes, the crescendo of her straightening spine. But her voice, when she spoke, was calm. Tell me exactly what she said, Zora. Every word. So, I did, watching her face darken and then smooth out into an expression I recognized as her preparing for battle face. It was the same look she wore when arguing with insurance companies about patient care or confronting the principal when a substitute teacher had made my brother sit in the hallway for asking too many questions. I'm calling your father, she said, reaching for the phone. And then, we're paying Mrs. Winters a visit tomorrow morning. No! I grabbed her wrist. Please, Mom, don't. Zora Jenkins, if you think I'm gonna let I don't want to go if she doesn't think I'm good enough. I interrupted. It would be awful, having to represent the school when my own teacher doesn't believe in me. My mother looked at me for a long moment, her anger softening into something more complex. Baby, she said gently, sometimes people like Mrs. Winters never think we're good enough, no matter what we do. That's about their limitations, not yours. I know, I said, though part of me didn't fully believe it. But I don't want to fight about it. I want to go to my room now. Mom studied me, conflict clear in her eyes. She was a fighter by nature, a woman who believed injustice should be confronted head-on. But she also knew when to respect my wishes. All right, she finally said. But this conversation isn't over. Your father and I will discuss it tonight. In my room, I took out my math notebook and began working through complex equations, losing myself in their certainty. 2 hours later, Dad knocked on my door. Your mother told me what happened, he said, sitting at the edge of my bed. I'm sorry, Zora. It's okay, I lied. No, it's not. His voice was gentle but firm. But you know what? Mrs. Winters isn't the last word on your abilities. Not even close. He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a folded newspaper clipping. I was saving this for the weekend, but I think you need it now. It was an article about a new mathematics mentorship program at the community college, designed specifically for promising middle and high school students. Applications were due in 2 days. I thought maybe you could apply, Dad said. Show what you can do in a different arena. I took the clipping, a small flame of hope rekindling. Thanks, Dad. Your mother still wants to speak with Mrs. Winters, he warned. And honestly, so do I. What she did wasn't right. I know, I said, and this time I meant it. But can we wait? Just a little while? I want to try this first. I held up the article. My father nodded, understanding in his eyes. All right. We'll follow your lead on this, for now. But Zora, your mother and I are always in your corner. Never doubt that. After he left, I carefully filled out the application for the mentorship program, pouring all my disappointment and determination into each answer. When asked why I wanted to join, I wrote simply, because mathematics is the one language where the truth can't be denied, and I want to become fluent enough to speak it in ways no one can ignore. The next day at school was hard. Mrs. Winters acted as if nothing had happened, calling on me in class as usual, marking my work with her customary check marks. But now I noticed things I hadn't before. How she would praise white students for work that was merely adequate, while offering only curt nods to the few other black students in our advanced class. How she would interrupt Jasmine Taylor mid-explanation, but let Michael Phillips ramble through his incorrect answers without comment. During lunch, I sat with my friends Keisha and Danielle, pushing food around my plate without eating much. You okay? Keisha asked, nudging my shoulder. You're quieter than library day. I considered telling them about what happened, but something held me back. Maybe pride, maybe shame. Maybe the fear that saying it aloud would make it more real. Just tired, I said. Stayed up too late doing the extra geometry problems. Danielle rolled her eyes. Girl, you need to find a hobby that doesn't involve protractors. We laughed, and for a moment things felt normal. But as we left the cafeteria, I saw Jamie Cooper in the hallway, surrounded by his usual group of friends. He caught my eye and gave me a small, confused smile, as if he was trying to figure something out. I looked away quickly. He didn't know yet that Mrs. Winters had chosen him. I wondered what she would tell him, how she would explain passing over the student with perfect scores. The rest of the week dragged on. I submitted my application to the mentorship program and threw myself into studying, not just mathematics, now but everything. History, science, English. As if academic perfection could armor me against future rejections. On Friday afternoon, as I was packing up my books, Mrs. Winters approached my desk. Zora, could I speak with you a moment? My stomach tightened, but I nodded. I've spoken with Jamie about the competition, she said, her voice low so others couldn't hear. He's very excited about the opportunity. I hope you understand that this decision was made with the school's best interests at heart. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not malice, but something almost worse. Indifference wrapped in self-justification. She didn't actively wish me ill. She simply couldn't see me correctly, couldn't recognize what I was capable of. I understand perfectly, Mrs. Winters, I replied, zipping my backpack with finality. Her eyebrows rose slightly at my tone. Good. I'm glad we're on the same page. But we weren't on the same page. We weren't even in the same book. I left school that day feeling something shift inside me. The initial shock and hurt were evolving into something harder, more resolved. I wouldn't let one teacher define my worth or limit my possibilities. At home, I found a thick envelope addressed to me from the community college. With trembling fingers, I opened it to find a letter congratulating me on my acceptance to the mathematics mentorship program, along with a personal note from Dr. Eleanor Richards, the program director. Dear Zora, your application stood out among all those we received. Your passion for mathematics shines through your words, and your academic record speaks for itself. I'm particularly impressed by your advanced work in algebraic concepts. I look forward to meeting you next week. Together we'll explore mathematics beyond the confines of your current curriculum. I read the letter 3 times, warmth spreading through my chest. Someone had seen me, really seen me. Not just my skin or my hair or my background, but my mind. What's that? Mom asked, coming into the kitchen. I handed her the letter wordlessly, watching her face as she read it. "Oh, Zora!" she exclaimed, pulling me into a hug. "This is wonderful." "It starts next week," I said against her shoulder. "Tuesday and Thursday, afternoons and Saturday mornings. We'll make it work," she promised. "Your father can pick you up on Thursdays, since I have the late shift, and I'll handle Tuesdays and Saturdays." That weekend, a strange calm settled over me. The mentorship program was a new door opening, and I was determined to walk through it with confidence. I still felt the sting of Mrs. Winter's rejection, but it was dulled by the anticipation of working with Dr. Richards, who had recognized my potential sight unseen. Monday morning brought unexpected news. As we gathered for the morning announcements, Principal Davis's voice crackled over the intercom. "Students and faculty, I have an exciting update about the state mathematics competition. The competition organizers will be visiting our school this Wednesday to meet with our student representative and to discuss logistical details. This is a great honor for Oakwood, and I know you'll all join me in making them feel welcome." Murmurs rippled through the classroom. Mrs. Winters frowned. Slightly, her pen poised over the attendance sheet. "Mrs. Winters," called Michael from the front row. "Who's representing us at the competition? Is it Jamie?" All eyes turned toward our teacher, including mine. She cleared her throat. "Yes, Jamie Cooper will be representing Oakwood," she said, her voice firm. The decision was made based on a comprehensive evaluation of suitable candidates. Jamie, sitting across the room, straightened in his seat, a mixture of pride and confusion on his face. I kept my expression neutral, though something cold settled in my stomach. It was one thing to be rejected privately, another to have it announced to everyone. Keisha, sitting beside me, leaned over. "Wait, didn't you apply for that too, with your math grades?" "I did," I whispered back. "But apparently grades aren't everything." Her eyes narrowed. "That's messed up." After class, Jamie approached me in the hallway. His face was flushed, and he kept shifting his weight from one foot to the other. "Hey, Zora," he said, adjusting his backpack strap. "Can I talk to you a second?" I nodded, steeling myself for whatever was coming. "Mrs. Winters told me I'm going to the math competition," he said, looking uncomfortable. "But that doesn't make sense to me. You're way better at math than I am. Everyone knows that." His honesty surprised me. "She told me I didn't have the right profile to represent the school." Jamie's eyebrows drew together. "What does that even mean? It's a math competition, not a fashion show." Despite everything, I laughed. It was exactly what I had been thinking. "Look," Jamie continued, lowering his voice. "I didn't ask for this. I mean, I'm not going to turn it down because it'll look good for college applications and stuff, but it doesn't feel right. I just wanted you to know that." I studied him for a moment. Jamie Cooper had never been unkind to me, but we'd never been friends either. We existed in different social circles, rarely intersecting. Yet here he was, acknowledging what we both knew to be true. "Thank you for saying that," I said finally. "Good luck at the competition." He nodded, looking relieved that our conversation was ending. "Thanks. I'll probably need it." Tuesday afternoon, I attended my first session at the mentorship program. Dr. Richards was a tall black woman with locks pulled back in a neat bun and eyes that missed nothing. She welcomed me warmly and introduced me to the 3 other students in the program, a 9th grader named Marcus, a 10th grader named Lily, and another 7th grader, David, from a private school across town. Today, we're going to start by exploring some concepts that go beyond your current school curriculum, Dr. Richards explained, writing equations on the whiteboard that made my heart race with excitement. These are the foundations of calculus, which you'll encounter in high school, but I believe you're all ready for a preview now. For 2 hours, I forgot about Mrs. Winters and the competition and everything else as I lost myself in the beauty of a mathematics I'd never encountered before. It was like discovering a new room in a house I thought I knew completely. As I was packing up to leave, Dr. Richards approached me. "Zora, your insights today were remarkable," she said. "Your intuitive grasp of these concepts suggests you have a natural aptitude for higher-level mathematics." Warmth bloomed in my chest. "Thank you. I really enjoyed today's session." "Your application mentioned you're at Oakwood Middle School," she commented. "They're participating in the state competition this year, aren't they? Will you be representing them?" The question hit me like a splash of cold water. "No," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "Another student was selected." Dr. Richards tilted, her head studying me. "I see. Well, their loss is our gain. We'll have more time to explore these concepts together." I smiled gratefully, appreciating her tact in not pressing further. "By the way," she added as I turned to leave, "I'm one of the organizers for that competition. We're visiting Oakwood tomorrow to meet their representative. Small world, isn't it?" My heart skipped. "You're one of the organizers?" "Yes. I help design the competition problems and oversee the selection process," she smiled. "Perhaps I'll see you at school tomorrow, though you'll be busy with classes, I imagine." I nodded mechanically, my mind racing. Dr. Richards was visiting Oakwood tomorrow. Dr. Richards, who had praised my mathematical abilities and who helped design the competition itself. "Is everything all right, Zora?" she asked, noticing my expression. "Yes," I managed. "I'm just surprised by the coincidence." "Life is full of them," she replied. "See you Thursday." All the way home, my thoughts tumbled over each other like rocks in a landslide. What would happen when Dr. Richards discovered Jamie was Oakwood's representative? Would she remember my application and make the connection? Would she say something to Principal Davis or Mrs. Winters? Part of me hoped she would, that someone with authority would question Mrs. Winters' decision. Another part dreaded the potential confrontation, the spotlight it would put on me. When I got home, I told my mom about the coincidence. "Well, isn't that interesting?" she said, a sly smile spreading across her face. "Seems like the universe has a way of setting things right sometimes." "What do you think will happen?" I asked. She shrugged, but her eyes were sparkling. "I don't know, baby. But I think tomorrow might be a day to pay extra attention in class." Wednesday morning arrived with a buzz of excitement throughout Oakwood. The main hallway had been decorated with banners welcoming the competition organizers, and Principal Davis was wearing his good suit, the one reserved for board meetings and parent nights. In math class, Mrs. Winters seemed tense. She snapped, at Michael when he asked a question about the homework and barely acknowledged my perfect quiz score. Jamie sat straight in his chair, his usually rumpled shirt tucked in neatly, a nervous energy radiating from him. As you all know, Mrs. Winters said at the end of class, the competition organizers will be visiting during 5th period. Jamie, please report to the main office at that time. The rest of you, continue with your regular schedule. The morning crawled by. During lunch, rumors swirled about the important visitors. Someone said one of them was a former Fields Medal winner. Another claimed they were scouting for a special mathematics academy. 5th period was English for me, but I found it impossible to concentrate on the giver discussion. My eyes kept drifting to the clock, wondering what was happening in the main office. Was Dr. Richards there? Had she met Jamie yet? What was being said? 10 minutes before the bell, a knock at our classroom door interrupted Ms. Collins mid-sentence. The door opened to reveal Principal Davis, looking oddly flustered. "Excuse me, Miss Collins," he said. "I need to see Zora Jenkins, please." 25 pairs of eyes swiveled toward me. Heat crept up my neck as I gathered my books and followed. Principal Davis into the hallway. "Zora," he said once the door closed, his voice low and concerned. "There seems to be some confusion regarding the mathematics competition. Could you come with me to my office, please?" I nodded, my heart pounding against my ribs like it was trying to escape. In the principal's office, I found a scene I never could have imagined. Dr. Richards was there, along with an older man I didn't recognize. Mrs. Winters sat rigid in a chair, her face pale, and Jamie Cooper stood awkwardly by the window, looking like he wanted to disappear. "Ah, here she is," Dr. Richards said warmly when I entered. "Hello again, Zora." "You two know each other?" Principal Davis asked, surprise evident in his voice. "Zora joined my mentorship program at the community college yesterday," Dr. Richards explained. "Her application was quite impressive." Mrs. Winters' eyes widened slightly, but she remained silent. "Zora," Principal Davis said, gesturing to an empty chair. "Please sit down. We have a situation that needs clarification." I sat, placing my books carefully in my lap, awareness dawning that something significant was unfolding. "Dr. Richards has brought to our attention that you were already qualified to represent Oakwood in the state mathematics competition," Principal Davis continued. "In fact, your preliminary scores placed you in the top percentile of all applicants, statewide." Mrs. Winters shifted in her chair. "There must be some mistake. I never received notification about—" "The notification was sent to the school 3 weeks ago," the older man interrupted, his voice gentle but firm. "I'm Dr. Hannigan, the competition director. We sent an email congratulating Oakwood on having Zora Jenkins as their representative, based on her exceptional qualifying scores." The room fell silent. I stared at my hands, a strange calm settling over me. So there had been no mistake after all, no misunderstanding. Mrs. Winters had known all along. "I see," Principal Davis said, his tone now cool as he turned to Mrs. Winters. "And what happened to this notification, Mrs. Winters?" She swallowed visibly. "I must have overlooked it. There were many emails regarding the competition and in the process of selecting our representative." "But Zora was already selected," Dr. Richards pointed out, "by the competition committee itself. Based on her academic record and preliminary test scores, there was no secondary selection process needed." "I wasn't aware of that," Mrs. Winters insisted, though her voice had lost its usual confidence. "I thought the school had to choose its own representative." "Even if that were the case," Dr. Hannigan said, adjusting his glasses, Wouldn't the logical choice be the student with the highest mathematics scores? The implication hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. Jamie, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. Mrs. Winters told me I was chosen because I'm a well-rounded student who could represent Oakwood's values, he said, his cheeks flushed with embarrassment. But I told her I didn't think it was fair because Zora is much better at math than I am. Mrs. Winters' face reddened. Jamie, that's not exactly what... What values exactly were you referring to, Mrs. Winters? Dr. Richards asked, her voice deceptively casual as she looked directly at my teacher. The room grew so quiet I could hear the wall clock ticking. Mrs. Winters opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. Academic excellence, of course, she finally said. Leadership qualities, communication skills. Interesting, Dr. Richards replied, because from what I observed yesterday, Zora possesses extraordinary communication skills when explaining complex mathematical concepts. Her leadership was evident in how she helped another student work through a difficult problem. And her academic excellence speaks for itself. Principal Davis cleared his throat. I think it's clear there's been a serious error in judgment here. Dr. Richards, Dr. Hannigan, I want to apologize on behalf of Oakwood for this oversight. Zora will, of course, be our representative at the competition, as originally intended. Relief and vindication washed over me in equal measure. I glanced at Mrs. Winters, expecting to see anger or resentment. But what I saw instead was something like fear, the expression of someone seeing themselves clearly for the first time and not liking the reflection. Zora, Principal Davis continued, is this still something you want to do? Represent Oakwood at the competition? The question surprised me. Did I still want it? After the hurt, the rejection, the confirmation that Mrs. Winters had deliberately blocked my opportunity? I looked at Jamie, who gave me a small, encouraging nod. At Dr. Richards, whose faith in my abilities had never wavered. At Mrs. Winters, who couldn't quite meet my eyes. Yes, I said firmly. I want to represent Oakwood. I've been preparing for months, and I'm ready. Excellent, Dr. Hannigan said with a smile. We'll need to update some paperwork, but everything else is in order. The competition is in 2 weeks, as you know. Jamie, Principal Davis said, turning to the still uncomfortable boy. Thank you for your honesty today. It shows real character. Jamie nodded, relief evident in his posture. Can I go back to class now? Once he was dismissed, Principal Davis turned his attention to Mrs. Winters. I'd like to speak with you privately after this meeting concludes, he said, his tone making it clear that conversation would not be pleasant. Dr. Richards stood smoothing her skirt. Well, I think our official business here is concluded. Zora, I look forward to seeing you at the mentorship program tomorrow, and at the competition, of course. After they left, Principal Davis asked me to wait outside while he spoke with Mrs. Winters. I sat on a bench in the hallway, still processing everything that had happened. Through the closed door, I could hear muffled voices. Principal Davis's deep baritone, occasionally rising. Mrs. Winters's higher pitch responding defensively. 5 minutes later, the door opened, and Mrs. Winters emerged. Her face was composed, but her eyes were red-rimmed. She paused when she saw me, shifting her weight uncomfortably. Zora, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I owe you an apology. I looked up at her. This woman who had tried to diminish me, to erase my achievements and deny my potential, and found that my anger had transformed into something else. Not forgiveness, exactly, but understanding. She was trapped in her own limited vision, her own biases. The tragedy wasn't what she had done to me, but what she had done to herself. "I accept your apology, Mrs. Winters," I said simply. She nodded once, sharply, and walked away, her shoulders hunched as if carrying a new weight. Principal Davis called me back in afterward and apologized again, assuring me that appropriate actions would be taken to address what had happened and to prevent similar incidents in the future. "You have extraordinary potential, Zora," he said kindly. "Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. I balanced my regular classes with the mentorship program and additional study sessions for the competition. News of what had happened spread through Oakwood, despite attempts to keep it quiet. Some students looked at me differently, with newfound respect or curiosity. Others, friends like Keisha and Danielle, were outraged on my behalf. "She should be fired," Keisha insisted during lunch one day. I shook my head. "She's being required to take cultural sensitivity training and will be supervised for the rest of the year," Principal Davis told my parents. "Still not enough," Danielle muttered. Mrs. Winters remained my teacher, but our dynamic had shifted dramatically. She was careful now, overly polite, making a visible effort to call on me in class and to praise my work. It felt artificial, but I preferred it to the previous invisibility. The day of the competition arrived with perfect spring weather, clear skies and gentle breezes that carried the scent of blooming dogwoods. My parents drove me to the State University where the event was being held, my mother fussing over my appearance, my father giving me pep talks about remaining calm under pressure. "Remember," he said as we walked toward the registration area, "it's just you and the numbers in there. Nothing else matters." I nodded, grateful for his wisdom, for both my parents' unwavering support through everything. Principal Davis met us, at the entrance, wearing his good suit again, and a tie with small mathematical symbols printed on it. "Ready to make Oakwood proud, Zora?" he asked. "Ready as I'll ever be," I replied, adjusting my lucky hair clip, a small silver butterfly my grandmother had given me before she passed. The competition was intense. 3 grueling rounds of increasingly difficult problems, testing not just knowledge but creativity and perseverance. Between rounds, I spotted Dr. Richards watching from the judges' area, giving me an encouraging thumbs up. When the final results were announced, I stood on the stage with 5 other students, heart hammering, as we waited to hear the placements. 3rd place went to a boy from a private academy in the capital, 2nd place to a girl from the Northern District, and 1st place in the 7th grade division, with the highest score recorded in competition history. The announcer said, "Goes to Zora Jenkins from Oakwood Middle School." The applause was thunderous, none louder than my parents in the front row, my father whistling with 2 fingers, my mother wiping tears from her cheeks. Principal Davis shook my hand vigorously as I received my trophy and certificate for a $500 scholarship. In that moment of triumph, I looked out over the crowd and spotted Mrs. Winters at the back of the auditorium. Our eyes met briefly, and she gave a small, tight nod before turning and walking out the door. I wish I could say that winning the competition changed everything, that Mrs. Winters had a complete change of heart, that prejudice at Oakwood disappeared, that every door opened easily for me afterward. But life isn't a fairy tale with neat resolutions. What did change was me. I learned that my worth wasn't dependent on others' recognition, that justice sometimes arrives in unexpected forms, and that standing in your truth may not convince everyone, but it will attract those who matter. Mrs. Winters continued teaching at Oakwood for 2 more years before taking early retirement. We maintained a cordial but distant relationship, both of us aware of what had transpired between us, but choosing not to revisit it directly. I continued with Dr. Richards' mentorship program throughout middle and high school, eventually earning a full scholarship to study mathematics at MIT. My parents framed my competition certificate and hung it in the living room, where it remained long after I left for college, a reminder of battles fought and overcome. 20 years later, life has come full circle in ways I never could have predicted. After earning my PhD in mathematics, I returned to my hometown to teach at the university and to create opportunities for young students like the one Dr. Richards created for me. Last month, while volunteering at a local food bank, I encountered a familiar face, older now, lined with age and what looked like hardship. Mrs. Winters stood across the room, not distributing food as I was, but waiting in line to receive it. Our eyes met, and I saw recognition flicker in hers, followed by something like shame. She looked away quickly, shuffling forward as the line moved. When she reached my station, I smiled as I would at any other person seeking assistance. "Hello, Mrs. Winters," I said quietly, placing bread and canned goods in her bag. "It's Zora Jenkins. It's been a long time." She looked up, her once commanding presence diminished by age and circumstance. "Dr. Jenkins now, I hear," she said, her voice smaller than I remembered. "I read about your work in the local paper." I nodded, continuing to fill her bag with food. "Life has a way of teaching us lessons," she said suddenly, her eyes meeting mine with unexpected directness. "Sometimes we learn them too late." The line behind her was growing, but I paused, recognizing the weight of this moment. "It's never too late to learn, Mrs. Winters. That's what you taught us, isn't it?" A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "Among other things, apparently." I added an extra package of cookies to her bag and handed it to her. "The community center is looking for tutors for their after-school program," I said. "They need someone with experience teaching mathematics fundamentals. If you're interested, I could put in a word." Surprise flickered across her face, followed by a complex emotion I couldn't quite name. "Why would you do that for me, after what I did?" "Because 20 years ago, I learned that our worth isn't determined by one person's judgment," I replied. "Not yours of me then, and not mine of you now. We all deserve second chances." She nodded slowly, taking the bag. "I'll think about it," she said, and I knew she would. As she walked away, I felt a sense of completion, of a circle closing. The 12-year-old girl who once stood before Mrs. Winters' desk, clutching an acceptance letter and feeling invisible, could never have imagined this moment. But the woman I've become understands that true justice isn't about punishment or revenge. It's about growth, about creating opportunities for transformation. If my story resonates with you, I hope you'll share it with someone who might need to hear it. Someone facing their own Mrs. Winters, their own closed doors, their own battles for recognition. And I'd love to hear what you would have done in my place. Would you have extended that olive branch years later? Or would you have chosen a different path? In the end, we all face moments where others try to define our limits. The victory comes not just in proving them wrong, but in defining ourselves on our own terms, in writing equations where we determine the variables, and solving for our own value. And sometimes, in the most unexpected moments, those who once sought to diminish us find themselves in need of the very greatness they tried to deny. That perhaps is the most profound mathematics of all, the calculation of human potential, unbounded by prejudice, unlimited by fear.